This is Inaros Prime, one of my favorite reworks of all time for such a simple reason. Sandstorm finally works for grouping enemies. Most of the changes to his kit are pretty straightforward. Sandstorm is now much more usable, plus Scarab Swarm and Scarab Shield are now two separate abilities, making the Swarm way better. The main thing to keep in mind is that at least for me, Sandstorm is his best ability, but only really when you build for max range and have enough energy to be constantly spamming your abilities. Sandstorm is now probably one of the best grouping abilities in the game. His passive allows him to revive himself after death, turning into a sand clone that needs a certain number of melee attacks to land before he gets revived. That number gets bigger the more you die, but it does decay. He also heals 20% HP per melee finisher. His first ability is Desiccation. Everything you see within range is hit by pocket sand and open to finishers. They take a small amount of true damage per second, while also being staggered and blinded. The range and damage are affected by mods. I've replaced this ability with Breach Surge just because I find myself not needing to use finishers to heal. Breach Surge is pretty great for amplifying the damage to enemies caught by Sandstorm, but honestly that DPS boost isn't super necessary since Sandstorm is just so good on its own. His second ability, of course, is Sandstorm. Turn into a whirling tornado for a short duration that moves at high speeds, pulling in all enemies while also dealing slash damage. Duration, range, and damage are affected by mods. Like I said before, this is probably one of the best grouping abilities in the game because it costs so little, it's so easy to spam, and you move fast enough to pull in way more enemies than you expect. It also drops enemies right in front of you, so you can also use ground finishers on them. His third ability is Scarab Shell. Hold down the ability to convert your health into a permanent armor gauge that also makes you immune to status. Every time you would take status, it burns 5% of your armor. This is affected by mods, so using it on a max range build can be a little rough. And his final ability is Scarab Swarm. Launch a group of Scarab towards enemies. Those enemies take continuous corrosive damage, applying status twice a second. The Swarm will also spread to nearby enemies. The Swarm damage and duration is affected by mods, with 10% of Inaros' max health also added to the damage. Swarm targeting and spread range is also affected by mods, not to mention killed enemies turn into sand cavats that continue to spread corrosive damage. For my build, the main ability becomes Sandstorm. Scarab Swarm and Breach Surge are mostly just there as a DPS boost, but when you have a grouping ability that's this good, you don't really need much else. His build is really weird because you're essentially required to use max range to really take advantage of Sandstorm. But because of that, I use triple Umbra to still have positive strength. I've also used Streamline to make sure I always have enough energy for Sandstorm and Scarab Swarm, but to make that work properly, you also need a yellow shard for bonus energy from orbs, and a blue shard for more energy max, but that one is less necessary. The nice thing is that he's a classic example of a triple Umbra tank, which means I only need Arcane Grace for survivability, so I can use Arcane Avenger as the other choice for free crit chance essentially all the time. The two main stats that'll be hard to perfect are the 100% duration and the 117% strength. Because his 3 and 4 need positives for both of those stats, the build will be pretty expensive. Then it's obviously max range at 280% and 130% efficiency, just so I'm less worried about energy. It's amazing to me that my build didn't really change that much with the rework. I already built him as a max range grouping frame before the rework because he was boring, but now Sandstorm actually works, and it's pretty awesome when you're also spamming Scarab Swarm and Breach Surge. Alright folks, that's right, we're here again, back half of the video. As you can see, I've just been letting the enemy shoot me while I get this video started, so without further ado, there's not a lot to talk about with Inaros, so let's get right into what we're talking about. Of course, the secret with Inaros, the only thing you need, press 2 to win, group up every single enemy in the map, let them drop. It is nice to have positive duration because then you have like a 4-second window to spam your Sandstorm and, you know, pull in as many enemies as you possibly can. And that's really the main thing, is wait for the enemies. Part of using a really good grouping ability is that the enemies just don't spawn fast enough sometimes. So what I actually have to do is wait for them to spawn, and then they all come in, and then I can grab them all at once. I hope you guys noticed something right there. There was a little piece of inside baseball. So when I jumped in the air and activated Sandstorm, it actually didn't trigger the Sandstorm until I hit the ground. So that's going to be something that's pretty important to keep in mind. You know, if you've watched for a while, you know that I love jumping in the air before I do anything. So in this situation, that's actually a bad idea. But look at that. I mean, For a 21 meter range, it is deceptively large. It is just comical. I haven't even used Breach Surge. I've had basically no reason to use Breach Surge, but we will use it on the next couple enemies. But yeah, I mean, you've seen Sandstorm go off a couple times now. It's, of course, I hope you see why I love it. I hope you see why it's so strong, and it's just, you know, exactly what you want in a grouping ability. It's so much fun to use. But yeah, let's talk about some other stuff. Let's talk about Scarab Swarm as the first ability. We'll let those scarabs kind of spread around. You can see very quickly all the enemies are affected by Scarab Swarm. I'm going to pull them all in. They're still going to be affected by Scarab Swarm. I'm going to deactivate this. I'm going to activate Breach Surge, and then one shot should pretty much clear them all out. There you go. So as you can see, when I was just using the Cinta, I really didn't need Breach Surge. I didn't need Scarab Swarm either, but, you know, it's there so that if you really want to, if you're ever feeling a little panicked, if you're ever worried that, you know, you're not able to put out enough DPS, then it's a very simple strat. You just press 4, press 1, and then, of course, hit them with the Sandstorm, and that's pretty much all you need. But as you can see, like, at least from what I'm doing, you know, I'm not doing, like, level cap stuff. I'm not doing super high level stuff. So for the most part, hit him with the Sandstorm, hit him with the Onos, hit him with the Cinta. You know, what I really love when I have these kind of frames is that I can pretty much use whatever weapon I want. So using the Cinta, which is something more of like an S tier weapon that is really effective, deals a lot of damage, but does have its weaknesses. Like, it does have its moments where it's not, you know, not as useful as something like the Kuvazar, which, you know, obviously may be a little bit of a dumb statement, but I hope you guys know what I mean. And yeah, you know, we've been going for about 3 minutes. We'll let the bosses spawn, and then we can kind of show off what else is going on. But yeah, for the most part, the main thing to keep in mind is that, yeah, he's kind of the exact opposite of Dante. Like, Dante was very stressful. You're kind of always doing something all the time, but, you know, with Inaros, you pretty much just press 2 to win, and then once everybody's grouped up, then you do a couple shots with the Cinta, and I mean, pretty much everything is taken care of. Obviously, if I'm feeling a little crazy, I can swap to the Onos as well. The new pistol, the new Incarnate pistol, that definitely puts in work. So I would say it's really nice to have a really solid grouping ability on Inaros, just because, as you know, I love grouping abilities, and part of that is because, you know, when you have a grouping ability, it gives you the opportunity to pretty much use whatever weapon you want. You know, you can use these kind of like one-shot guns that are a lot better at single targets. You can now effectively use them to essentially clear out an entire group of enemies and not really have to worry about any kind of danger. What I am going to do in this situation is just activate Scarab Swarm and also activate Breach Surge to try and pacify these dudes a little bit. That should be pretty much a one-shot for one of them, and then I can one-shot the other one. There you go. So as you can see, like, it's really nice. It's a nice trade-off. It's a nice balance. Like, not only do you have this comically strong grouping ability, but now you also have Scarab Swarm, which is really good for armor stripping. You also have Breach Surge on there, so, you know, you have 2 different methods to, like, pacify enemies, make them a little more trivial. But I mean, the basic gist of it is, like, if you're ever scared, you press 2, and then if you're still scared, then guess what? You activate your 4, you activate your 1, and then you just kind of clear out everything all at once. So I'm going to hit this, I'm going to hit this, I'm going to reload my armor. It is nice to have Black and White Man because I get an absurd 850 armor, which, you know, when you do the math, it comes out to be a lot of armor. But yeah, I mean, we've been going for 4 minutes and 45 seconds. We're about to wrap it up, so I hope it was clear enough. I mean, he is really basic. He's kind of what you love in, like, a super straightforward frame. But yeah, you pretty much just log in, press 2. Maybe if you're scared, you press 4 and press 1, and that's about it. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of Inaros or my build in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed and want to see more, please like the video and subscribe if you want to catch me live.